Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for your time. My name is Jesus Martinez. I am responsible for Grafenano Dental. Grafenano started as a manufacturer of graphene on an industrial scale. We are the largest producer in the world, but we not only manufacture graphene, but we understand graphene and configure it for the different solutions. Our GCAM product is a definitive solution for prosthetics. It's a biopolymer nano-reinforced with graphene to obtain a definitive monolithic dental prosthesis. This is Ornella Tosta, responsible for Grafenano Dental and responsible of technical service and training. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Hi, everyone. As Jesus tell you, I'm Ornella Tosta, the technical support of Grafenano Dental. And today we are going to give a training of the design parameters for GCAM and the characterization. Before of this, I'm going to put a video so you can understand how works our company and what's a little bit about more GCAM.
Grafenano Dental is devoted to the development of dental products with graphene, such as GCAM discs for milling using a CAD/CAM system. Its business philosophy is based on taking care of the details from the beginning to the end of the manufacturing process. At the reception of raw material, the protocol indicates various levels of quality control. Firstly, the materials received are checked and a register of the batches is made to initiate the traceability by the means of exams of color and size of the particles. Later, the raw material is stored in special chambers for its posterior treatment. The fundamental component of this process is graphene. Grafenano Dental is part of the corporate network of the Grafenano Group. Grafenano not only manufactures graphene, but also has a deep understanding of the possibilities this nanomaterial offers and manages to obtain it in different formats and configurations to assure the specific characteristics of every application, like is the case with the graphene polymer of Grafenano Dental. Once the raw material has been doped with graphene, the appropriate mixture in the exact proportions is made to obtain the final material. After its polymerization and curing, a strict quality control exam takes place, necessary to guarantee the quality of the product in terms of flexion, compression, and superficial hardness. The samples of this material which pass the quality control are amended to adjust to the required formats. At this stage, it is important to pay special attention to the precision of the lines and the polishing so the process of transforming the disc into a dental prosthesis is 100% safe. The last quality control test involves checking every single final product, which will be marketed individually. After many years of investigation, at Grafenano, we are very aware that success is only achieved with passion and excellence at the smallest detail. We wish to make the users of our dental prosthesis participants in the love we feel toward our work. The GCAM disc is only the beginning of the integral solution of restorative dentistry, the whole revolution made possible thanks to graphene. Graphene is an allotropic form of carbon, which allows us to cover the monomer particle with its precursor, granting the resulting material with mechanical, biological, and chemical super properties. The acrylics with PMMA base are formed starting the chemical reaction the moment the monomer joins the polymer particles, triggering an exothermic chemical reaction. This chemical reaction is improved and completed thanks to the distribution of heat due to the conductive properties of graphene, which allows for more compact and stable materials. The union of polymeric chains produces the acrylic matrix, the basis of our supermaterial, with exclusive properties such as the elimination of the coefficient of absorption of liquids, which avoids aging and damage to prosthesis with the pass of time, and with opposing properties of current physics, like the combination of superficial strength and flexion, which allows for lighter, safer, more biodynamic and aesthetic materials. An objective which has always been pursued by dentistry and which has now been achieved thanks to Grafenano Dental.
Okay, so that was a introduction about our product, and now we're going to start the GCAM design parameters. Okay, here I want to show you a general view because it's really important make a previous evaluation and analysis of all the parameters because it's essential to avoid the problems when we are going to rehabilitate. So our main objective as professionals are return chewing gum function, aesthetic, provide oral health and comfort to the patient. But also the parameters that the technical dentist or in the clinic should collect for us for design the perfect processes for our patients should have, we have to know the patient expectation, dental and morphological assessment, that this will involve the clinical, the facial, the lips, and the dental gingival analysis, and also the medical and radiological assessment. When we have all this patient information collect, we have to establish two types of parameters. The general parameter, we could find them in the instruction sheet that we can find inside the box of the GCAM. But then we have the patient requirements because not all the patients we can establish the same processes for all of them. So we have to involve in this part the number of implants, distribution between implants, vertical dimension, and occlusion. We are going to start with the stump structures. We are going to talk about the general parameter for crowns and pontics. These parameters involve the minimum thickness for crown, as you can see in this image. For the cervical part, we have to establish 0.4 millimeters, and for the rest of the crown, we have to establish at 0.6 millimeters. Then we are going to talk about the cross-section for these two options. And another thing that we have to keep in mind is that we cannot put more than 3 elements between two teeth. Remember also that GCAM is an open drilling system, and the milling strategy for GCAM is the PMMA. Here you can see the principal page of ExoCAD software. At first, we have to complete all the information for our job. As you know, if you work with ExoCAD, then we have to complete the job definition. And here we are going to talk about the parameters of GCAM for a crown and a pontic. At first, we are going to work with the WASAC option, anatomic WASAC option. Also, you can use anatomic crown. The material that we should select is the PMMA for work and design. And then the unique parameter that we should modify is the minimal thickness. We have to establish at 0.6 millimeters. Remember that if we put it at 0.4, we could establish the thickness for the cervical part. But the important thing is that we have to establish for all the crown. So then when we have milled our restoration, we can remove this material in the cervical part up to 0.4 millimeters. Here we don't have to change anything. When we start design, the first thing that we have to change in our design is the internal part of our crown. We have to design, as you can see here, a cavity tunnel to facilitate the exit of the cement. We can select the brush, as you can see here, with the same cavity, 0.08. This is established for ExoCAD software, and create this channel, as I told you, to facilitate the cement when the clinic is going to make the cementation. The second thing that we have to make sure are the cross connectors. Okay, These cross connectors in the anterior area should not be less than 9 millimeters square. Okay, this is really important. And for the posterior area, it could not be less than 13 millimeters square. Also remember that when we finish this step, we have to add more material and smooth to integrate these connectors to our design. This is for crowns. Now we are going to talk about implant structures. Okay, we are going to see all the steps we have to keep in mind to start design our implant structure. The first step is the passivity test. This is really important because in the clinic, the passivity test should be checked with the right X, as you can see here in the image. So we can ensure our work model. Okay, we have to be sure that we are going to work with the correct model and with the correct position of this implant. Because of this, we are going to avoid stresses in our GCAM structure. Remember that if we don't do this, we could have problems in the future with our finished prosthesis. On second step, we are going to perform our wax occlusion ring. As you can see here, we recommend to be screwed into 2 implants. This will facilitate the test to the dentist and then would be also helpful for us to make the WhatsApp denture test. Remember that for design our prosthesis implant, if we have more than 2 implants, we should use T-base, as you can see here. And for unique crowns, we need to use anti-rotation abutments. Remember that we will cement this, our restoration later to this abutment. Another thing that we have to review is the height of the T-base. Why? Because if the height of the T-base is not the 50% of the height of the restoration, we need to replace this T-base with abutment. Now I'm going to show you an example of wrong design. Okay, here we have our T-base in this image. Okay, this is a wrong design. Why? Because the T-base do not arrive until the 50% of the total of the structure. In the second image is the same problem, okay? Look the height of the T-base and look the height of our structure. This will be problems in the future. We could have decementation of the prosthesis, or it could also broke. The third step that we are going to talk about are the submerged implants. We have to review all the implants that are submerged in our gingiva because we need this connection levelness up to the gingiva. So we have 2 options. At first place, we have the first image at right side that we can use transepithelial to elevate our connection and then use a T-base or abutment, okay? But it's more easy, this second option you have in the left side, that we can use an abutment with the high base, with the correct high base to elevate this connection to the gingiva. Why we do this? Because this way we could ensure the thicknesses of the emergency profile of our implant and also avoid the decementation for an excessive pressure on the gum. Now I'm going to talk about the correct distribution for all-on-4 and all-on-6 implants. We know that this is not always possible, okay? But the perfect position for implants will be in canine or lateral incisors, as you can see here in the image, and in the first molars. And for 6 implants, the correct position will be lateral incisors, first or second premolar, and first premor. As I told you, this is not always possible. Okay, we have a lot of patients, and we cannot always put this correct position of our implant. So we have to ensure our design taking care not more than 3 pontics between abutments. For example, if you can see here this image, we change our design removing 1 premolar. Why? Because we have 3 pontics between abutments. So if we put another premolar, we would not comply the parameters for GCAM. So we have to modify our design to ensure the correct design of our prosthesis. Again, we are going to open our exocad software. And for T-based structures, because as I told you before, we can use T-based or abutment. It depends on the parameters of the patient we have. So for T-based, we have to select screw retain, okay? Because we are going to scan our prosthesis with a scan body. Also, I recommended to use the scan WhatsApp, always say no, and design the WhatsApp digitally, okay? It will be more anatomic and more aesthetic processes, final processes. Remember also the mandatory gingiva, select always. Why? Because here we don't put the connectors between the teeth. So the gingiva will be our connection between our structure, GCAM structure. And the minimum thickness for our structure, implant structure should be 1 millimeter. For pontic, we always select also the mandatory and the no design WhatsApp digitally, and the rest of parameters is still the same. Now, when we are going to design with abutment, we have to select screw retain, but with manual position. This is because we don't scan with a scan body. We do it like a thumb, okay? So we have to select the base of the implant. The rest of parameters are the same as T-base. Remember, the minimum thickness for implants is 1 millimeter. Okay, now we are going to talk about the cantilever for our design. We only, GCAM only permit 11 millimeters in length. As you can see here, it's approximately the height of a molar. Here also I put an image that you can see what is the not correct cantilever, okay? Because here we are putting 2 teeth in cantilever, okay? This will be not a correct design. Also, it's very important to live without occlusion and do not individualize the structure in the palate or lingual part. This area here should be reinforced for ensure the processes, and also have a good basal support. So avoid the vertical blending. If it don't have a good basal support, our prosthesis could break here. Okay, the thicknesses around the abutment, as I told you before, the thicknesses that we established at exocad is 1 millimeter. But we recommend when the implant is between 2 teeth, as here you can see in the image, is really more difficult to ensure the thicknesses, because the technicians want to give more aesthetic and individualize this area. So you have to be sure that when we have the implant between 2 teeth, we have to establish a minimal thickness of 2.5 millimeters. Okay, as you can see here, in the front part, we can make more individualized but in the palate or lingual part, we have to reinforce our structure. Okay, the occlusion depends on the type of restoration that we are going to design. So here I explain, depending on the type of processes or restoration that we are going to design, the type of occlusion that we should let. So for crown, we need a light occlusion in interscuspal occlusion and without contacts in excursive movement. I mean laterals and protrusive movement. Then when we are designing half arch, we need a functional occlusion and bilateral group function. And for full arch, a balanced articulation. I mean, with balanced articulation, when we make all the movement, we don't have any premature occlusion with our antagonist. I want to show you this example because this is a case that arrived a failed design. So 2 times broke this prosthesis. So if you can see why the prosthesis could fail. As you can see here, the distance between the 2 implants goes up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 pontics between our implants. So this is not possible for GCAM. We can have a solution. So this is the next question. What we could do for this type of cases that we cannot ensure the parameters for GCAM. So we have to reinforce the GCAM structure with an internal structural material, like for example, metal, teak, any internal material that you want to use. And then we could design our superstructure of GCAM. We will cement this later. Also remember that if we could not ensure the cantilever with 11 millimeters of length, we also could reinforce internally with a bar. Now I'm going to show you an example of a GCAM reinforce. Here we design a simple bar. This time we do it with metal. We make the opacify of the structure. Then we scan the bar and design our superstructure with GCAM. Then, as you can see here, we have the 2 parts of our processes, and we will make the cementation of these 2 parts. Then, for the finishing of our processes, we have to add or pink composite or the same color of the tooth to complete our basal part of our processes. Okay, now we are going to talk about the workflow process. So you can see that GCAM is really easy to work with. So here you can have a quick view of the process of GCAM. At first, we have to scan our model, or if we have an intraoral scan, we should have the STL. So we make our design, and we can use 2 types of anchorage, the universal or circumstance. We work with both anchorage. Also, the PMMA strategy, you could use dry option or wet option, okay? You can use both of them. And for final aesthetic, we can use manual polishing, superficial stain, stratification system, or injection system. As you know, we work with 2 types of format in GCAM. We have monochroma and multichroma. The difference between them are that monochroma is only 1 color enamel, okay, 1 base color. With monochroma, we could design all types of processes. As you can see here, we have some examples, posterior or anterior crowns, for implants also, full arch implant, and also to cover dark stains or yellow teeth. Multichroma is a mix of 2 types of resin, the color of the enamel and incisal. Remember that multichroma is not the same thing as multi-layer format. Multi-layer is a format, a horizontal format of the resin, to more dark to more translucency. Multichroma is a mix of these two types of resin. So it turns more translucency. We can use multichroma for anterior stamp teeth and also for vinyl, inlays, and onlays. We have a only contraindication for multichroma discs are that when we are going to make a restoration, the teeth should be healthy. It could not be a discoloration teeth, or also when we are going to design with abutment. Remember that multichroma is more translucency, so we could have problems with the back of the color of the abutment or a discoloration teeth. Before we explain the characterization of the GCAM structure, we always like to explain what means progressive aesthetic. Progressive aesthetic for us, as you can see here in the image, is because GCAM is really translucency. So as you can see here in this crown, the most translucency part is the cervical part. Why? Because here is where we have the thinnest part of the crown. As we told you before, it was 0.4 millimeters. Why we use this effect? Because we want to translate the back of our natural teeth to find more natural teeth processes. When GCAM, we put the processes or the restoration into the tooth or into the mouth, as you can see here, for example, is into a model, you can see that the GCAM absorbs the internal color of the teeth and turns the cervical part into the most darkest part and the incisal part into the most translucent. We want to find effect with the thicknesses of the material. Now we are going to talk about the characterization. Before we start explaining all this process, I'm going to put a short video so you can see quickly how we work the material. this was a short video, but I'm going to explain part to part the different type of characterization that we could give to our GCAM structure. The first finishing is the manual polishing. We have to extract the structure from our disk, and we can use any tungsten board that we want, any type. It doesn't matter. Then we have two options. We could make a conventional polishment like a PMMA processes with pumice polish and gloss, but I prefer make a manual polishing. What means a manual polishing? As you can see here in the image, I use different types of gums to smooth the GCAM structure, and then I use go-out hair and also cotton to give the gloss to our final processes. I prefer using this type of manual polishing to give more naturally to our restoration. Remember that with a conventional polishment with pumice, we could remove all the anatomy of our restoration. So I recommended use a manual polishing with different types of burrs. When we are going to make a characterization with superficial stains or composite stratification, the main thing is the preparation of the GCAM structure. If we are going to put stain, or if we are going to make a stratification of the incisal or the gingiva part, the preparation of the GCAM structure is the same. So I'm going to explain you. At first, we have to remove the restoration from the disc. If we are going to realize some stratification, in this case, in the incisal part, we have to make the cutback, as you can see in the second image. And then the most important thing is to sandblasting our restoration at 2 or 3 bar of pressure with aluminum oxide. It could be from 50 up to 110 microns. Remember that you can give air to remove the excess of the aluminum oxide, but we cannot clean the restoration with water stream. If we make the sandblasting, only give air, okay? Do not clean with water stream. Then we have to spray the structure with alcohol to eliminate the superficial tension and clean also our structure before start characterizing. Then we have to apply a thin layer of acrylic primer. Here you can see that we are using GC acrylic primer. This is one of our recommendations for superficial stain, okay? But also if you use any other like Bredent or Annex Dent, okay, is no problem. Only that you make sure that you are applying a primer for acrylic, okay, for PMMA. And then make the light curing in the correct machine, okay? Remember also that this is really important because the wavelength of the machine not always is the same for different light curing materials, okay? You may be sure that you are using the correct light curing machine. Then we proceed to characterize our processes. The first image, we are making a superficial stain. And in the second image, we are applying a stratification of the incisal part. Then we make the light curing again. And finally, we can give 2 types of finishing. Again, as I told you before, we can make a manual polishing if we are going to stratify with composite. Or if we apply superficial stain, we have to put optic glaze or some glaze, okay? To fix our stain to our process. But remember that optic glaze, we not always know layer that we are putting on the final glaze. So we recommend to use, when we light curing this optic glaze, we recommend to use a cotton burn here, okay? A cotton burn to eliminate the excess of the optic glaze. Please do this always. If you are going to apply optic glaze, you have to finish with a cotton ball. Then for the vertical system process, we have to decide if we are going to use a conventional resin or if we are going to use composite. We can use the two types of finishing. If we are going to use a conventional resin, we can use a conventional silicone, as you can see here in this protocol. And if we are going to use composite, we need a transparent silicone, so the light cure could get into our structure. We make the mill and grind the structure, as you can see here, then make the flake of our GCAM structure. Remember again, okay, that we have to perform the cutback for the incisal part, then make the sandblasting with aluminum oxide. Only give air, do not please clean with water. Then spray the structure with alcohol to clean it and also to eliminate the superficial tension. If we are going to use conventional resin, we can apply monomer. If we are going to inject composite, we need to apply acrylic primer. Depending on the case, we use one or other. Remember that this is for a better addition of the other material. Then we proceed to inject our incisal part, and we make the same process for the gingiva part, okay? I will not repeat it again, but remember that it's the same. Cutback, sandblasting, clean with alcohol, acrylic or monomer. We have to inject our product, and then finally we can give two types of finishing. Again, we can use a manual polishing or apply optic glaze. So these are our characterization for GCAM. And here finished our presentation. I don't know if you have any question about all the process or parameters for GCAM.
Ornella, I want to ask the question about the connection between composite and GCAM.
Okay.
I saw that you are making only sandblasting.
Yes.
And alcohol or monomer, you clean it with alcohol or monomer?
Okay, monomer, no, only with alcohol, okay?
Only with alcohol?
Yes, the monomer is when we are going to make an addition with a conventional resin, like when we are going to repair some PMMA processes, habitual processes. We only have to put a little bit of monomer to have a best addition with the resin or with the conventional resin. If we are going to use composite, we need to apply acrylic primer.
Acrylic primer,
Yes.
What kind of acrylic primer? From optic glaze or from?
It depends on what material you are going to use. If you are using GC optic glaze, you have to use the GC acrylic primer, okay? If you are going to use Bredent, I think they have in Visiolink.
Yes.
Primer, okay? It depends on the material that you are going to use for the characterization.
So acrylic primer is necessary?
Yes, it's necessary, yes.
Okay, because I tried it and I had debonding of composite enamel from the GCAM material. Okay,
no, it's not the same. We make some tests with the composite primer, okay, but it's not the same, okay? It needs to be acrylic primer. Acrylic primer. Yes.
Okay. I have another question, if it's possible.
Yes, of course.
Are you going to make GCAM material a multi-layer one?
I don't think so, but we can ask Jesus.
No, we make a multi-chroma system, okay?
I'm working with the multi-chroma, but it's not the same like the multi-layer.
The multi-chroma is a monomaze, you know, but yes. multi-layer is a different colors, okay? But we don't make a multi-layer at the time. It's possible in the near future.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your time, okay? Thank you, Ornella, for all this plea, okay? And thank you, Dana, for all your support, okay?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.